Tears blurred Emily's vision as she stared at the faded photo of her dying mother, whispering her final wish, "Find love, my girl, before it's too late." The words echoed like a ghost in her mind as she stepped onto the glittering chaos of the family gala, crystal chandeliers casting golden light on faces that smiled with hidden daggers. Emily, the golden child turned CEO, stood tall in her designer gown, but inside she was crumbling, a single, successful, yet achingly alone under the weight of judgmental eyes from relatives who whispered about her empty ring finger and childless life. Her cousins flaunted perfect families, her aunts clucked about wasted youth, and her father, the patriarch, eyed her with disappointment masked as concern. She needed an escape, a shield, something to silence the pity and the pressure. That's when she spotted him in the corner, away from the crowd, Mike, the quiet janitor, pushing his mop with rhythmic strokes, his uniform faded and his shoulders slightly hunched from years of hard labor. His calloused hands gripped the handle tightly, knuckles scarred from endless nights of overtime, scraping together every penny for a life that demanded more than he could give. Emily's heart raced with desperation. She approached him, her heels clicking on the marble floor, voice cracking as she leaned in close. "Please," she begged, eyes pleading. "Pretend to be my boyfriend tonight. Just for the evening. I'll pay you whatever you need." Mike paused mid-swipe, the mop dripping forgotten water onto the floor. He was a single dad, raising his ailing daughter Lily on scraps and sheer willpower, her medical bills piling up like insurmountable mountains. He'd missed birthdays, school plays, all for extra shifts that barely covered the treatments keeping her alive. His own dreams once of being an engineer, a provider with pride, had shattered long ago when his wife walked out, leaving him with a toddler and a broken heart. But looking at Emily now, her vulnerability mirroring his own hidden fractures, something stirred in him. His eyes softened with unspoken pain, a depth of empathy born from nights spent praying over hospital beds. "No payment needed, miss," he said gently, his voice rough like gravel but warm like a hearth. "I've known sacrifice, more than you can imagine." He set down his mop with a quiet resolve, the clatter echoing softly in the bustling hall. In that moment, he transformed not into a prince, but into her arm of support, slipping his hand into hers with a steadiness that belied his weary soul. As they walked back into the fray, Emily felt a spark of hope amid the despair. Mike's presence was a lifeline, his quiet strength a reminder that even in pretense, real connections could bloom from the ashes of loneliness. The gala swirled around them, laughter and clinking glasses masking the undercurrents of family drama, but for Emily, the night had just begun to shift. Mike shared subtle glances, his touch protective yet respectful, weaving through conversations with a humility that disarmed her snobbish kin. He didn't boast or overplay, he simply was there, a rock in her storm. Yet beneath his calm exterior, Mike's mind raced as his phone vibrated in his pocket, a call from the babysitter about Lily's fever spiking again. He silenced it without a second thought, choosing this stranger's plea over his own crisis, because sacrifice was his language, redemption his quiet pursuit. Emily noticed the flicker in his eyes, the way his jaw tightened, and curiosity sparked. "Why help me?" she whispered during a lull by the dessert table, the scent of chocolate fountains mingling with her growing intrigue. Mike hesitated, then opened up in fragments, his runaway youth, abandoning his first family in fear, only to circle back years later, begging forgiveness and vowing to make amends by scrubbing floors if that's what it took to fund Lily's fragile life. "Family love isn't perfect," he admitted, voice low, "but it's worth every scar." Emily's realization dawned slowly, like sunrise piercing fog as she'd sacrificed her own heart for boardrooms and bottom lines, pushing away potential loves to chase approval that never came. Her mother's wish wasn't about a ring or a title, it was about embracing vulnerability, about choosing connection over isolation. As the night deepened, Mike's phone buzzed insistently again. This time he couldn't ignore it fully. Excusing himself to a quiet alcove, he answered, his face paling at the news. Lily needed him now, the hospital calling for emergency care. Panic gripped him, but so did you to Emily, who trusted him in her darkest hour. Torn, he returned, pulling her aside. "I have to go," he confessed, eyes glistening. "My daughter." She's everything. Emily's world tilted. The pretend boyfriend wasn't acting anymore. In his raw honesty, she saw her own path to redemption. "Take my car," she urged, pressing keys into his hand. "And let me help." For real. What started as a desperate lie evolved into profound sacrifice. Mike rushing to Lily's side, Emily following uninvited, determined to bridge their worlds. At the hospital, amid beeping monitors and sterile halls, Emily met Lily, the frail girl with Mike's kind eyes, and felt family love redefine itself. She funded the treatments anonymously at first, then openly, sacrificing her gala facade for genuine bonds. Mike, in turn, taught her that realization came not from success, but from giving without expectation. Their pretense shattered, replaced by a tapestry of redemption, Emily rediscovering joy in helping others, Mike finding pride beyond his mop, and Lily blooming under shared care. Family wasn't blood alone, it was chosen sacrifice, unwavering love that changed everything, healing wounds long thought permanent. In the end, Emily honored her mother's wish not with a fake date, but with a real family forged in empathy and gratitude. The evening unfolded, the gala's elegant facade began to crack under the weight of genuine connection, and Mike didn't just play the part of Emily's boyfriend, he embodied it with a sincerity that surprised even him, weaving stories of his own losses into the conversation like threads of gold in a torn tapestry. Standing by her side amid the swirl of silk gowns and tuxedos, he defended her from her family's barbs with quiet strength, his voice steady as he countered her aunt's snide remark about Emily's singleton status with the simple, "She's building an empire, love finds its own time," his words carrying the weight of someone who'd learned patience the hard way. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest, unfamiliar yet comforting, as Mike's hand lingered protectively on her arm, not possessive but reassuring, a silent promise that she wasn't facing the lines alone tonight. The orchestra played soft melodies in the background, couples whirling on the dance floor, but for them, the real dance was in the subtle exchanges and the way he'd catch her eye during a particularly cutting comment from her cousin, offering a small nod that said, "I've got you." When his phone buzzed in his pocket, an insistent vibration that pulled him from the moment, Mike glanced at the screen and saw the hospital's number. His daughter Lily in the hospital again, her fragile body battling another flare-up of the illness that had defined their lives for years. His heart clenched like a fist, memories flooding back of sleepless nights by her bedside, whispering promises he'd keep her safe no matter the cost. But he silenced it without hesitation, choosing to stay, to honor the fragile trust Emily had placed in him, even as guilt gnawed at his insides like a persistent shadow. "Family's everything," he murmured to her later, as they stepped onto the balcony for a breath of cool night air, his eyes distant, gazing at the city lights that mirrored the stars he rarely had time to admire. The words hung between them, heavy with unspoken layers, and Emily, touched by the raw honesty in his voice, probed deeper, her curiosity overriding the pretense. "What do you mean?" she asked softly, the wind tousling her hair as she leaned against the railing. Mike hesitated, his calloused fingers tracing the balustrade, then opened up like a book long closed, revealing his redemption story, how he'd once been a runaway father, overwhelmed by the pressures of young parenthood and his own failures, abandoning his wife and infant daughter in a haze of fear and regret. Years later, fate cruelly circled back when his ex passed away, leaving Lily in his unsteady hands, a second chance he seized with desperate gratitude. Now, he scrubbed floors until his back ached, mopped halls like this one to fund her treatments, watching over the child he nearly lost, every paycheck a prayer, every shift a step toward atonement. His voice cracked as he described Lily's laughter, rare but precious, and the way her small hand squeezed his during painful procedures, anchoring him more than any success ever could. Emily listened, the gala's noise fading into a distant hum, and realization hit her like a wave crashing over parched sand as she'd sacrificed love for career, mirroring his regrets in a different form, climbing corporate ladders while pushing away friends, dates, any hint of vulnerability that might derail her ambitions. Her mother's dying wish echoed anew, not as a command but a mirror to her own emptiness, the family love she'd taken for granted now starkly absent. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pity but from recognition, as Mike's story illuminated her own blind spots. By night's end, As the guests began to thin and the chandeliers dimmed, Emily vowed silently to help Lily, to turn this charade into something real, forging a bond that transcended the evening's deception. She slipped her business card into Mike's hand with a promise: "Let me cover the next treatment." No strings. Mike's act hadn't just fooled the crowd with its convincing tenderness, it had peeled back layers of isolation, healing 2 broken hearts in the process. He finally excused himself when the phone buzzed again, urgency overriding duty, rushing to the hospital where Emily, unbidden, followed in her own car, her gown traded for jeans in a frantic change. There, in the fluorescent-lit ward, she met Lily, a pale girl with Mike's resilient spark, and felt an instant pull, reading stories to her while Mike held her hand. Days turned to weeks. Emily sacrificed board meetings for bedside vigils, redirecting funds from her company to Lily's care, rediscovering joy in simple acts like braiding hair or sharing laughs over cartoons. Mike, in turn, found redemption not just in fatherhood but in allowing help, his pride yielding to partnership. Their families merged in unexpected ways. Emily's relatives, shamed by her generosity, softened their judgments, while Mike taught her that sacrifice wasn't loss but gain. Family love, a choice renewed daily. What began as a desperate plea evolved into profound transformation, Emily embracing vulnerability, Mike reclaiming his worth beyond the mop, and Lily thriving in a circle of unwavering support. The pretend boyfriend's quiet strength sparked a chain of realizations, proving that true healing came from giving selflessly, from choosing connection over convenience. In the end, 2 souls, scarred by regret, wove a new tapestry of redemption, where sacrifice bloomed into unbreakable bonds, and love, once feigned, became the realest thing they'd ever known, changing everything in its gentle, relentless wake.